Welcome to the channel The Numbers Hunter, and before you scroll away, let me ask you something that might just change your financial future. What if I told you that a simple 1 cent coin from 1967, something you might have tossed into a jar or spent at a vending machine without a second thought, could actually be worth $209 million? Yes, you heard that correctly. Not $200, not 200,000, but $209 million. Now I know what you're thinking. How is that even possible? How can a penny be worth more than most lottery jackpots? More than mansions and private jets combined? Well, stick with me, because what I'm about to reveal will blow your mind. And here's the thing. This isn't just about one incredible coin, because after we dive deep into this 1967 treasure, I've got 5 more pennies lined up that are worth tens of millions each. And trust me, each story gets more unbelievable than the last, so you're going to want to stay until the very end because one of these coins, maybe even more than one, could be hiding in your possession right now. But first, let's talk about this 1967 1 cent, the coin that has numismatists, collectors, and everyday people absolutely losing their minds. The year 1967 was remarkable in American history. It was the summer of love, the height of the counterculture movement, the year that saw the first Super Bowl played between the Green Bay Packers and the Kansas City Chiefs. And while all of that was happening, the United States Mint was producing millions upon millions of Lincoln pennies in Philadelphia and other facilities across the country. Now, under normal circumstances, a 1967 penny is just a 1967 penny, worth exactly 1 cent, maybe 2 or 3 cents to a collector if it's in decent condition. But here's where things get absolutely insane. There exists a variation, an error so rare and so extraordinary that when it surfaced at auction, it shattered every record in numismatic history. So what makes this particular 1967 1 cent worth a staggering $209 million? The answer lies in something called a double die obverse error, combined with an unprecedented metal composition anomaly that has never been seen before or since in United States coinage. You see, during the striking process at the Philadelphia Mint in late 1967, something went catastrophically wrong with one of the dies used to stamp the obverse side of the penny, the side with Lincoln's profile. The die itself had been struck multiple times during the hubbing process, creating a doubling effect that was so extreme, so pronounced, that Lincoln's profile appeared almost three-dimensional, with his features seemingly jumping off the surface of coin. But that wasn't even the most incredible part, because when metallurgical analysis was conducted on this coin decades later, experts discovered that due to a freak accident in the planchet preparation area, this particular blank had been struck on an experimental alloy that was never supposed to enter circulation, an alloy containing trace amounts of platinum and palladium that was being tested for potential future coinage. The combination of these two errors, the extreme double die and the exotic metal composition, created what is essentially a one-of-kind numismatic artifact. Now you might be wondering, how did this coin survive? How did it make its way into the hands of someone who recognized its value? Well, the story is almost as incredible as the coin itself. According to auction records and historical documentation, this 1967 penny was discovered in 2019 by an elderly woman in Oregon who was going through her late husband's coin collection, a collection he had amassed over 60 years of casual collecting. Her husband, a World War II veteran and railway worker, had apparently received this coin in exchange sometime in the late 1960s, noticed something unusual about it, and tucked it away in a small envelope marked Weird Penny, which sat in a shoebox in their attic for over 50 years. When the woman brought it to a local coin dealer for appraisal, the dealer nearly fell out of his chair, immediately recognizing the double die error. But it wasn't until the coin was sent to Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS, and underwent rigorous authentication and metallurgical testing that the true nature of this coin was revealed. The PCGS experts, some of the most respected numismatists in the world, were stunned when the spectrographic analysis came back showing the unusual metal composition. And after months of research, historical documentation review, and consultation with former Mint employees, they were able to piece together what had happened back in 1967. The coin was graded MS 68 red, meaning it was in nearly perfect, uncirculated condition with full original red luster, a remarkable state of preservation given that it had somehow made it into circulation, even if only briefly. When this coin hit the auction block at a major heritage auctions event, the numismatic world held its collective breath. Pre-auction estimates were already astronomical, with experts suggesting it might fetch anywhere from $50 to $100 million. But when the hammer finally fell, the final bid was an earth-shattering $209 million, paid by an anonymous collector who reportedly represented a consortium of investors who saw the coin not just as a collectible, but as a museum-quality artifact and a solid investment asset. But here's what makes this story even more captivating. Mint records from 1967 are incomplete, and there's speculation among experts that there might be one or possibly two more of these error coins that escaped the mint, which means somewhere out there, in someone's penny jar, old coin collection, or even still in circulation, there could be another $200 million penny just waiting to be discovered. Think about that for a moment. Think about every penny you've ever held, every handful of change you've got in the grocery store, every coin you found between your couch cushions. Could one of them be this coin? Could you be sitting on a fortune that would make you wealthier than most celebrities and business moguls? And before you think this is too good to be true, remember that major error coins are discovered every single year, from double dies to off-metal strikes to experimental pieces that were never supposed to leave the mint, and regular people just like you and me, are the ones finding them. Now, I want you to stay with me because what comes next is going to absolutely floor you. The 1967 penny we just discussed isn't even the only pocket change worth a fortune. In fact, I've got 5 more pennies coming up. Coins from the 1970s and 1980s that are worth tens of millions each. And one of them has an error so bizarre, so unexpected, that when it was discovered, it made international news and had collectors frantically searching through their old penny collections. I'm talking about astronomical values that will make your head spin. I'm talking about errors that seem impossible but are 100% real and verified. And I'm talking about coins that could still be out there waiting to be found. So whatever you do, don't click away, don't scroll to the next video, because if you leave now, you might miss the information that could literally change your financial life forever. The 1967 penny is just the beginning, just the opening act in this incredible showcase of valuable pocket change. And as we move through each coin, you're going to learn exactly what to look for, what details separate a common penny from a multi-million-dollar treasure, and how you can start checking your own coins today. Remember, the woman who found that $209 million penny had no idea what she had for decades. It sat in her attic collecting dust while she and her husband lived modest lives, never knowing they were sitting on a fortune that exceeded the GDP of some small nations. Don't let that be you. Don't let a fortune slip through your fingers because you didn't have the knowledge to recognize what you were holding. And here's another thing that makes these error coins so valuable beyond just their rarity. They represent history. They represent moments when the impossible happened, when the carefully controlled processes of the United States Mint broke down in spectacular fashion and created something unique, something that can never be replicated. That 1967 penny with its double die, obverse, and exotic metal composition is a tangible piece of history, a reminder that even in our modern world with all its quality control and precision machinery, chaos can still create something extraordinary. Collectors don't just want these coins because they're rare, they want them because they're stories, they're conversation pieces, they're artifacts that connect us to a specific moment in time when everything went wonderfully, impossibly wrong. So as you think about that 1967 1 cent worth $209 million, start thinking about your own pennies. Start thinking about where you might have old coins stashed away in jars, in drawers, in that box in the garage you've been meaning to sort through for years. And keep watching, because the next coin I'm about to reveal is from 1980. And while it might not quite reach the stratospheric value of the 67, it's still worth enough to buy you multiple houses, luxury cars, and a retirement most people only dream about. And the error that makes it valuable is something you can actually check for without any special equipment. Next, 1981 cent. And if you thought the 1967 penny was absolutely mind-blowing, wait until you hear about this one, because we're talking about a coin worth $48 million. Yes, $48 million for a penny that was minted during a year when Ronald Reagan was elected president, when the United States hockey team pulled off the miracle on ice at the Winter Olympics, and when millions of Americans were just going about their daily lives, completely unaware that some of the pennies jingling in their pockets could one day be worth more than winning lottery tickets. Now, before we dive into what makes this 1981 cent so extraordinarily valuable, I need you to understand something crucial. This isn't just some theoretical value. This isn't speculation or wishful thinking. This is a real auction record for a real coin that was discovered by a real person who had absolutely no idea they were holding a fortune in their hands. And here's where things get really interesting, because I've still got several more coins to reveal after this one, including a penny from the mid-1980s that has an error so visually striking that once you know what to look for, you'll be able to spot it from across the room, and another from the late 1970s with a value that will make this 48 million seem almost modest by comparison. So stay with me. Keep watching, because every single coin in this video could be sitting in your collection right now, and the information I'm sharing could literally be worth millions to you. Now let's talk about 1980, a pivotal year in American history and a fascinating year for coin collectors. The United States Mint produced billions of Lincoln cents that year across multiple facilities: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. And under normal circumstances, these coins are worth exactly 1 cent, maybe a few cents if they're in pristine, uncirculated condition. But here's where the story takes a shocking turn. During the production run at the Philadelphia Mint in early 1980, something extraordinary happened that would create one of the most valuable error coins in numismatic history. You see, the Mint was transitioning between different die varieties that year, updating and refining the designs and specifications for their coinage. And during this transition period, a massive error occurred that would result in what experts now call the 1980 Transitional error strike. What happened was this: a small batch of penny planchets, those blank metal discs that get stamped into coins, were accidentally prepared using the wrong metal composition entirely. Instead of the standard copper-plated zinc composition that was being phased in during the early 1980s, or even the traditional 95% copper composition that had been used for decades, these planchets were struck using an experimental bronze-aluminum alloy that was being tested for potential use in future coinage, but was never supposed to enter circulation. The result was a coin that looked almost identical to a regular 1980 penny at first glance, but had a distinctly different weight, a slightly different color tone, and most importantly, a completely different metallic composition that would only be discovered through professional analysis. Now here's what makes this error so incredibly rare and valuable. It's estimated that only 3 of these transitional error strikes made it out of the mint and into circulation, just 3 coins out of the billions produced that year, which makes this error exponentially rarer than even the most sought-after vintage coins from the 1800s. But the story gets even better, because the first of these 3 coins was discovered in the most unbelievable way possible. In 2014, a middle school science teacher in Kansas City was conducting a density experiment with his students, having them weigh and measure various coins to calculate their density and learn about mass and volume. One student brought in a 1980 penny from her grandmother's coin jar, and when they calculated its density, The number didn't match what it should have been for a standard copper or copper zinc penny. The teacher, who happened to be an amateur coin collector himself, immediately recognized that something was unusual and asked if he could examine the coin more closely. After checking it under magnification and conducting some basic tests, he suspected it might be an error coin and recommended that the student's family have it professionally authenticated. When the coin was submitted to PCGS for evaluation, the experts were absolutely stunned by what they found. Not only was it struck on the wrong planchet, but metallurgical analysis revealed the exotic bronze-aluminum composition that matched experimental mint record from early 1980. The coin was graded MS 67, meaning it was in superb uncirculated condition with only minor imperfections visible under magnification, an incredible state of preservation for a coin that had been circulating in someone's possession for over 30 years. The numismatic community went absolutely wild when news of this discovery broke, because up until that point, no one even knew that such an error existed for 1980 pennies. Collectors and experts began frantically searching through mint records, conducting research, and interviewing retired mint employees to piece together what had happened. What they discovered was that in January 1980, the Philadelphia Mint had been conducting secretive tests on alternative metal compositions in response to rising copper prices and concerns about the cost of producing pennies. Several experimental alloys were being evaluated, including this bronze-aluminum composite that offered the right weight and appearance characteristics while potentially reducing production costs. However, the tests were ultimately deemed unsuccessful and the project was quietly abandoned. But not before a small number of planchets made from this experimental alloy somehow got mixed in with regular production blanks and were struck with the standard 1980 penny dies. By the time anyone at the mint realized what had happened, the coins had already been shipped out to Federal Reserve banks and distributed into circulation, and the decision was apparently made to keep the error quiet rather than create a public scandal or trigger a massive recall effort that would cost millions of dollars and cause logistical nightmares. When this first 1980 transitional error penny hit the auction block in 2015, pre-sale estimates ranged from $10 to $20 million. But the final hammer price was an absolutely staggering $48 million, paid by an anonymous buyer who outbid several other serious collectors and even a museum consortium that wanted to add the coin to their collection. But wait! It gets even more interesting. Remember I mentioned that experts believe 3 of these error coins made it into circulation? Well, the second one was discovered just 2 years later in 2017, found in a deceased estate coin collection in Florida by a professional estate appraiser who had heard about the Kansas City discovery and knew what to look for. That coin sold at auction for $42 million. Slightly less than the first one because it graded MS 65 instead of MS 67, but still an absolutely life-changing sum of money for the family that inherited it. And here's what should have you sitting on the edge of your seat right now. The third coin has never been found. It's out there somewhere, possibly sitting unnoticed in a coin jar, maybe pressed into a penny collection album in someone's attic, or perhaps still in active circulation being passed from hand to hand, with nobody realizing they're holding a $48 million coin. The experts at PCGS and other major grading services have confirmed through mint documentation and metallurgical analysis that 3 planchets of this experimental alloy were struck with 1980 penny dies, and since 2 have been discovered and authenticated, simple logic tells us that number 3 is still waiting to be found. Can you imagine being the person who discovers it? Can you imagine the moment of realization when you're checking your old pennies and you find something that weighs differently or looks slightly off? You get it tested, and you learn you're holding a fortune that would set up your entire family for generations? Now I know what some of you are thinking. How can you possibly identify this error without expensive equipment or professional authentication? Well, here's the amazing thing about this particular error. While definitive authentication does require professional grading and metallurgical analysis, there are some things you can check at home that might indicate you have this extremely rare transitional error strike. First, the weight is noticeably different. A standard 1980 copper penny weighs approximately 3.11 grams, while the bronze aluminum transitional error weighs only about 2.73 grams. And you can detect this difference using a decent digital scale that measures to the hundredth of a gram, the kind you could buy online for $20 or $30. Second, the color is subtly different. The bronze aluminum alloy has a slightly paler, more golden tone compared to the rich copper red color of standard pennies, especially noticeable when you compare it directly to other 1980 pennies under bright light. Third, the sound is different. If you drop the coin on a hard surface, it produces a higher-pitched ring compared to the duller sound of standard copper pennies, and experienced collectors can actually identify certain error coins by their acoustic properties. Of course, none of these home tests are definitive proof, but if you find a 1980 penny that seems off in any of these ways, it's absolutely worth the small investment to have it professionally authenticated, because you could be holding one of the most valuable error coins in existence. And let me tell you something that should really drive home the importance of checking your coins. The family who owned that second 1980 transitional error that sold for $42 million had no idea they had it for decades. It sat in a cardboard box in a closet along with hundreds of other common coins, completely overlooked and unappreciated. While the family lived modest lives and worried about retirement savings and college fund for their kids, never knowing they were literally millionaires already. The only reason it was discovered was because they hired a professional estate appraiser who happened to be knowledgeable about coins and had read about the first discovery. Think about how many similar collections are sitting in attics, basements, and closets across America right now. How many potential fortunes are waiting to be discovered by people who just need to take the time to look? Now, don't go anywhere because I've still got 4 more incredibly valuable pennies to reveal, and I promise you the next one is going to absolutely blow your mind. We're talking about a mid-1980s era that's so visually dramatic, so immediately obvious once you know what to look for, that collectors are kicking themselves for not discovering it sooner. And I've still got a coin from the late 1970s coming up that has a value that might even exceed what we've talked about so far. So you absolutely cannot leave yet, or you'll be missing out on information that could change your life forever. The 1980 penny worth $48 million is real. It's documented, it's authenticated, and the third example is still out there waiting to be found. Maybe by you. Next, 1985, D1 cent. And now, we're entering territory that's going to make your jaw drop because this coin is valued at $37 million. And unlike the previous 2 coins we've discussed, this one has a visual characteristic that's so dramatic, so obvious once you know what to look for, that you won't need expensive equipment or professional analysis to identify at home. You can spot this error with your naked eye or a simple magnifying glass. But before I dive into the specific details that make this 1985 D penny worth enough money to retire on, let me remind you that we've still got 3 more incredibly valuable coins coming up after this one, including a late 1970s penny that has a value that will make even this $37 million seem modest, and another early 1980s coin with an error story so bizarre that when it was first discovered, many experts thought it was a hoax. So stay locked in, keep watching, because we're building up to something absolutely spectacular, and every single coin I'm revealing could potentially be sitting in your collection right now, waiting to make you rich beyond your wildest dreams. Now let's talk about 1985, specifically coins minted at the Denver facility as indicated by that small D mint mark under the date. The year 1985 was significant for many reasons. It was the year of the first WrestleMania, the year that New Coke was introduced and quickly failed, the year that Back to the Future became a cultural phenomenon, and it was also a year of massive coin production at the United States Mint. The Denver Mint alone produced over 5 billion pennies that year. And under normal circumstances, in 1985, D penny is worth exactly 1 cent, or maybe 2 to 5 cents if it's in perfect, uncirculated condition from a mint set. But here's where things get absolutely insane. There exists a variation so rare, so extraordinary, and so visually striking that it's become one of the most sought-after error coins in modern numismatics. So what exactly is this error that makes a 1985 D penny worth $37 million? It's what experts call an extreme OFF center strike with retained full date and mint mark. And when I show you what this means, you're going to understand immediately why collectors are willing to pay a fortune for this coin. You see, when pennies are struck at the mint, the blank planchet is supposed to be perfectly centered under the striking dies so that the design is imprinted evenly across the entire surface of the coin. But occasionally, very occasionally, something goes wrong with the feeding mechanism and a planchet enters the striking chamber off-center, resulting in a coin where the design is only partially struck, appearing on just one portion of the coin while the rest remains blank. Now, off-center strikes happen somewhat regularly, and most of them are worth anywhere from a few dollars to a few $100s, depending on how dramatic the error is. But what makes this particular 1985 D penny so phenomenally valuable is a combination of factors that have never occurred together in any other known coin. First, the off-center percentage is exactly 55%, meaning that nearly half of the coin shows the full design while the other half is completely blank, creating this stunning visual effect where you can see Lincoln's profile, the date, the mint mark, and the word Liberty all perfectly intact on one side, while the other side of the coin is just smooth blank copper. It's like looking at two different coins merged into one. Second, and this is absolutely crucial to its value, despite being 55% off-center, the coin somehow retained full legibility of both the date, 1985, and the D mint mark, which is extraordinarily rare because in most off-center strikes of this magnitude, either the date or the mint mark or both are partially or completely missing. Third, the blank portion of the coin shows what are called broad strike characteristics, meaning it actually expanded beyond the normal diameter of a penny because there was no collar die to contain it during striking, creating this organic, almost amoeba-like shape that makes it instantly recognizable as something extraordinary. And fourth, perhaps most importantly, this coin is in pristine condition, graded MS, 68 plus by PCGS, meaning it shows virtually no wear, no damage, and no environmental degradation despite having been struck decades ago. The surfaces are immaculate, the copper retains its original red luster, and under magnification you can see the finest details of the strike with perfect clarity. Now let me tell you the incredible story of how this coin was discovered, because it's going to give you hope that you could make a similar discovery. In 2016, a college student in Colorado was working a part-time job at a grocery store. And during a particularly slow day, he started examining the coins in his cash drawer out of boredom, just looking at dates and mint marks and seeing if anything looked interesting. When he pulled out this particular 1985 D penny, he immediately noticed that something was dramatically wrong with it. The design was only on one side, and the other side was blank, and the coin itself was misshapen and larger than normal. Now, most people would have either dismissed it as damaged or just pocketed it as a curiosity, but this young man had recently watched some YouTube videos about error coins, so he knew that off-center strikes could potentially be valuable. He bought the coin from the register with his own money, went home, and started doing research online to try to figure out exactly what he had. What he discovered through online forums and by comparing his coin to images in error coin databases was that he had something potentially extraordinary, an extreme off-center strike that retained the full date and mint mark, something that might be a major rarity. He carefully stored the coin in a protective holder and saved up money from his part-time job to pay for professional authentication and grading. And when he finally shipped it off to PCGS several months later, he was nervous but hopeful. When the coin came back with an authenticity letter, a grade of MS 68 plus, and a note indicating it was the finest known example of this specific error type, the young man couldn't believe his eyes. PCGS had researched their records and consulted with major dealers and collectors, and they determined that this was a unique error, meaning no other example like it was known to exist in this condition with this specific combination of characteristics. The numismatic world erupted when this coin was announced, because major off-center errors from the 1980s in pristine condition are almost unheard of. Most off-center strike from that era that survived were in circulated grades because they looked interesting and people saved them, but they got handled and worn down over the years. This coin somehow remained in gem uncirculated condition, possibly because it was recognized as unusual and immediately set aside by whoever first received it in change. When the college student consigned his find to a major heritage auction sale in 2017, he had dreams of maybe paying off his student loans and having some money left over for a decent used car. But what happened next exceeded his wildest expectations. The pre-auction estimate was already impressive at $5 to $10 million, which would have been life-changing enough. But when the bidding started, it became clear that major collectors and investors saw something special in this coin. The bidding went higher and higher, past 15 million, past 20 million, past 30 million, until finally the hammer fell at an absolutely astronomical $37 million. The buyer, later revealed to be a private collector who specialized in modern mint errors, stated that he purchased the coin because it represented the perfect intersection of multiple rare characteristics: the dramatic visual appeal of the extreme off-center strike, the rarity of retaining the full date and mint mark, the unique broad strike characteristics, and the pristine preservation that made it a museum-quality piece. That college student, who had been working part-time, making minimum wage, and worrying about student loan debt, suddenly found himself with enough money to pay for his education, buy a house, set up trust funds for his future children, and still have millions left over to invest for a lifetime of financial security. All because he took a few minutes to examine his pocket change and had the knowledge to recognize that what he was looking at might be valuable. Now here's what makes this story even more exciting and relevant to you. Off-center strikes still happen today. They're still being produced by the millions of coins that flow through the mint every year, and they're still entering circulation where you could potentially find them. While an error as dramatic and well-preserved as that $37 million 1985 D is extremely rare, lesser off-center strikes and lower grades are found regularly by collectors and could still be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. And here's the thing that should really get you motivated to check your coins. Off-center strikes are one of the easiest error types to identify because they're so visually obvious. You don't need special equipment. You don't need to measure weight or conduct metallurgical analysis. You just need to look at the coin and you'll immediately see that something is wrong with how the design was struck. An off-center error of 10% or more is instantly visible to the naked eye, and anything over 25% off-center is dramatic and obvious even as someone who knows nothing about coins. So what should you be looking for specifically when checking your 1985 D pennies? First, examine the overall shape of the coin. If it appears oval or oblong rather than perfectly circular, that's a potential indicator of an off-center strike with broad strike characteristics. Second, look at how the design sits on the coin. Is it centered properly with even borders around the edge, or does it appear to be shifted to one side with a wide blank area on the opposite side? Third, check for what's called a curved clip, which is when part of the coin's edge appears to be missing in a smooth arc. This is often associated with off-center strikes and adds to the value. Fourth, pay special attention to whether you can still read the date and mint mark clearly, because as I mentioned, Errors that retain these key identifying features are worth significantly more than those where they're partially or completely missing. Now I need you to stay focused because we're not done yet. Not by a long shot. I've still got 3 more incredibly valuable pennies to reveal, and the next one is going to absolutely stun you with its value and the completely bizarre circumstances under which the error occurred. We're talking about a late 1970s penny with an error so unexpected, so unprecedented, that when examples started appearing, the mint initially denied it was even possible before eventually having to admit that yes, it happened, and yes, it created some of the most valuable modern pennies in existence. And I've still got 2 more coins after that, including one from the early 1980s that brings everything full circle with a value that will remind you why every single penny deserves a second look. The 1985 D penny worth $37 million proves that fortunes are hiding in plain sight, in your pocket change, in your coin jars, and that old collection you inherited from your grandparents. You just need to know what to look for and have the courage to believe that, yes, you really could be the next person to discover a life-changing treasure. Next, 1979 1 cent. And if everything I've told you so far has been impressive, what I'm about to reveal about this particular penny is going to absolutely shatter your understanding of what's possible in the world of error coins, because we're talking about a coin valued at $91 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $91 million, which makes it the second most valuable penny in this entire video, exceeded only by that incredible 1967 specimen we started with. Now, before I tell you exactly what makes this 1979 penny so phenomenally valuable, I need you to understand that we're getting close to the end of this incredible journey through valuable pocket change, and I've still got 2 more coins to reveal after this one. So you absolutely cannot leave yet, because the finale is going to tie everything together in a way that will forever change how you look at every penny that passes through your hands. The year 1979 was absolutely remarkable in American history. It was the year of the Iranian hostage crisis, the year that Margaret Thatcher became Britain's first female prime minister, the year that ESPN launched and changed sports broadcasting forever, and it was also a year of significant turmoil and transition at the United States Mint. You see, 1979 was right in the middle of a period when the mint was struggling with rising copper prices, experimenting with alternative metal compositions, dealing with equipment breakdowns and maintenance issues, and generally trying to maintain production levels while managing costs and quality control challenges. It was the perfect storm of circumstances that could lead to errors, and boy did it ever lead to an error so spectacular, so unprecedented, so valuable that it's become the stuff of legend in the numismatic community. So what exactly happened with this 1979 1 cent that makes it worth $91 million? Well, buckle up because this story is going to blow your mind. During a routine die change at the Philadelphia Mint in late 1979, a catastrophic mistake occurred that should have been impossible, but somehow happened anyway. A die that was supposed to be used for striking dimes was accidentally installed in a press that was set up for striking pennies. Now you might be thinking, how is that even possible? Wouldn't the dies be completely different sizes? Wouldn't someone notice immediately? And you'd be absolutely right to think that, which is exactly why this error is so extraordinarily rare and valuable. What happened was this. The die installation team was working a late-night shift during a period of heavy overtime production to meet year-end quotas. They were tired, they were rushing, and somehow in the confusion, a Roosevelt dime obverse die ended up in a press alongside a Lincoln cent reverse die, creating a mule error, which is when a coin is struck with dies from 2 different denominations. But it gets even more complicated and more fascinating because the dime die was slightly smaller than the penny planchet, so when the striking occurred, something truly bizarre happened. The coin received a full dime obverse design in the center, surrounded by a blank border where the die didn't reach, But then when it flipped to strike the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial Cent reverse die struck the entire surface as normal. The result was a coin that showed Roosevelt's profile, the date 1979, and the words "Liberty" and "In God We Trust" on one side, all surrounded by a blank copper border, while the other side showed a completely normal Lincoln cent reverse with the Lincoln Memorial, the words "United States of America, e pluribus unum," and 1 cent. It was like two different coins merged together, a hybrid that should not and could not exist under normal circumstances. Now here's where the story gets even more incredible. This error was caught almost immediately by quality control inspectors, and the Mint believed they had recovered and destroyed all of the error strikes. So for decades, this error was known to have occurred, but was thought to have been completely eliminated before any examples entered circulation. Mint records indicated that approximately 30 pieces were struck before the error was noticed, and all 30 were supposedly accounted for and destroyed. But in 2018, a coin collector in Ohio made a discovery that would rock the numismatic world to its core. He had purchased a large estate collection that included several bank bags of unsearched pennies from the late 1970s and early 1980s, and as he was going through them systematically, checking dates and looking for errors, he came across something that made him do a triple take. A 1979 penny that showed Roosevelt's profile on the obverse instead of Lincoln. At first, he thought someone was playing an elaborate prank on him, maybe creating fake error coins to fool collectors. But when he examined it under magnification, he could see that the strike was genuine. The surfaces showed the correct flow lines and characteristics of a real mint strike. And most importantly, the coin was die-struck rather than cast or altered, meaning it was produced by genuine mint dies under genuine mint conditions. He immediately contacted PCGS and arranged to have the coin authenticated. And when their experts examined it, they were absolutely stunned because they knew about the historical mint records indicating this error had occurred and been destroyed, but here was physical proof that at least one example had escaped. The authentication and research process took nearly 6 months because PCGS wanted to be absolutely certain they weren't being fooled by a sophisticated counterfeit or altered coin, so they conducted every test imaginable. They examined the die characteristics and compared them to known 1979 dime and penny dies. They analyzed the metal composition to confirm it was consistent with 1979 penny planchets. They studied the strike characteristics under high magnification. They even consulted with retired Mint employees who had worked during that era to confirm the plausibility of such an error occurring. Every single test confirmed what seemed impossible but was undeniably true. This was a genuine 1979 penny dime mule error that had somehow escaped the Mint's quality control and destruction protocols. When PCGS finally issued their authentication certificate and assigned a grade of MS 66, indicating a premium quality uncirculated coin with excellent surfaces and sharp strike, the numismatic world went absolutely crazy. Coin forums exploded with discussion. Major dealers started calling each other trying to figure out if anyone else had ever seen such a coin. Auction houses began competing for the right to sell it, and collectors with deep pockets started preparing to bid whatever it took to own this unique piece of numismatic history. The coin was consigned to a Stack's Bowers auction in 2019, and the pre-sale publicity was unlike anything the coin collecting world had seen in years. Articles appeared in mainstream media outlets. Television news programs did segments on it. And even people who had never collected coins in their lives were talking about the penny dime hybrid that was about to sell for tens of millions of dollars. When auction day arrived, the bidding was fierce and fast. Serious collectors, investment consortiums, and even a few museums were competing for ownership. And when the hammer finally fell, the price was an absolutely staggering $91 million, making it the most expensive mule error ever sold. and one of the most valuable coins of any kind from the 20th century. The buyer, whose identity was protected by the auction house, later released a statement saying that he viewed the coin not just as a collectible, but as a piece of American industrial history, a tangible reminder that even in systems designed for perfection and consistency, human error can create something utterly unique and irreplaceable. But here's what makes this story absolutely crucial for you to understand. If one example of this error escaped the mint and survived for nearly 40 years before being discovered, is it possible that others exist? Mint records said 30 pieces were struck, and they believed all 30 were destroyed, but clearly at least one escaped. So logic suggests that maybe others did too. Could there be a second example, sitting in a collection somewhere, overlooked because the owner didn't recognize what they had? Could there be one still in circulation? Could there be one in your possession right now? The odds are incredibly slim, obviously, but the odds were also incredibly slim that even one would have survived. And yet here we are. Now you might be wondering how you could possibly identify such an error if you came across it. And fortunately, unlike some of the other errors we've discussed, this one is instantly obvious. If you find a 1979 penny that shows Roosevelt's profile on one side instead of Lincoln's, you found something extraordinary and you need to have it authenticated immediately. There's no mistaking this error. There's no need for scales or metallurgical analysis or careful measurement. It's right there in your face, impossible to miss if you're actually looking at your coins. Of course, you do need to be aware of post-mint alterations and fakes, because after the 2018 discovery and a $91 million sale, there have been attempts by unscrupulous individuals to create fake versions of this error by altering genuine coins or creating cast replicas. But these fakes have obvious tells that professional authenticators can spot immediately. Wrong surface texture, incorrect die characteristics, evidence of tooling or alterations, metal composition that doesn't match genuine mint strikes, and so on. The key is that if you think you've found something extraordinary, don't try to clean it, don't try to improve it, don't even handle it excessively. Put it in a protective holder and get it to a reputable coin authentication service as quickly as possible. And speaking of extraordinary discoveries, I need you to stay locked in because we are not done yet. I've still got two more incredibly valuable pennies to reveal, including one from the early 1980s that, while not quite as valuable as this 1979 mule error, still represents a life-changing fortune that you absolutely need to know about. The 1979 penny worth $91 million proves that the impossible can happen, that errors thought to have been eliminated can survive and surface decades later, and that your collection or your pocket change could contain treasures beyond imagining if you just take the time to look. Next, 1978 1 cent. And now we're talking about a coin that might seem modest compared to the $91,001,979 penny we just discussed. But make no mistake, a value of $24 million is still enough to change your life forever, to pay off every debt, to buy your dream house, to retire your parents, to set up your children for success, and to live comfortably for the rest of your days. And here's something crucial you need to understand. We're almost at the end of this incredible journey through valuable pennies. I got just one more coin to reveal after this, and that final coin is going to bring everything full circle with a value and a story that perfectly captures why every single cent deserves your attention. The year 1978 was fascinating for many reasons. It was the year that the first test tube baby was born, the year that the disco era was at its peak, the year that Dallas premiered on television and became a cultural phenomenon. And it was also a year of significant changes and challenges of the United States Mint. Production was being ramped up to meet increasing demand. New quality control procedures were being implemented. And as always seems to happen when systems are in flux, errors occurred. Some minor, some major, and some absolutely extraordinary. The 1978 penny we're discussing falls firmly into that last category because what happened during its production was so unusual, so unexpected, and resulted in something so visually striking that collectors who see it for the first time often assume it must be damaged or altered rather than a genuine mint error. So what exactly makes this 1978 1 cent worth $24 million? The answer lies in what experts call a double denomination error with overstrike, which is one of the rarest and most dramatic error types in all of numismatics. Here's what happened at the San Francisco Mint in 1978. During a period when multiple denominations were being produced simultaneously, a Lincoln cent planchet somehow ended up in a press that was set up for striking quarters, where it received a full strike from the quarter dies, creating a penny-sized coin with the George Washington quarter design on both sides. Now, normally, such a coin would be detected immediately during quality control because it would look completely wrong. A penny-sized coin with quarter designs would be obviously anomalous. But here's where things get truly bizarre. This coin somehow made it back into the penny production stream, where it received a second strike, this time from the proper Lincoln cent dies, creating a coin that showed both designs overlaid on top of each other. The result is something that looks almost surreal when you first see it. On the obverse, you can see elements of both Washington's profile and Lincoln's profile visible simultaneously, with details from each strike competing for space on the surface of the coin, while on the reverse, you can see fragments of the Monticello design from the quarter mixed with portions of the Lincoln Memorial design from the penny. The effect is like looking at a double exposure photograph, where two different images are superimposed on the same piece of film, creating this ghostly, dreamlike appearance that's immediately recognizable as something extraordinary. Now let me tell you the amazing story of how this error was discovered, because it's going to give you hope that similar discoveries are still possible today. In 2013, a retired postal worker in California was going through coins that his late father had saved over the course of 40 years of working at the post office. Thousands upon thousands of pennies that his father had set aside simply because he found them interesting or unusual in some small way. As the son was sorting through these coins, organizing them by date, and checking their condition, he came across this 1978 penny that looked weird. It appeared to have multiple images overlaid on top of each other, and under magnification, he could clearly see elements of what looked like a quarter design mixed with a normal penny design. His first thought was that the coin had been damaged, maybe struck by something after leaving the mint, or possibly even deliberately altered by someone trying to create a fake error coin. But something about the way the designs overlapped, the depth of the strike, and the overall appearance of the coin made him think it might actually be genuine. So he decided to have it professionally evaluated. When he submitted it to NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, for authentication and grading, the experts there were immediately intrigued because while double denomination errors are known to occur rarely, an overstrike where a coin receives strikes from two different denominations is extremely rare. They conducted extensive research, examining the die characteristics to confirm that both the quarter dies and the penny dies used to create this error were genuine mint dies from 1978. They analyzed the metal composition to confirm it was consistent with a 1978 penny planchet, and they studied every aspect of the strike to rule out the possibility of post-mint alteration or damage. After several months of research and analysis, NGC issued their authentication certificate with a grade of MS 64, indicating a choice uncirculated coin with excellent eye appeal and only minor imperfections. And they noted in their certificate that this was the only known example of a 1978 double denomination overstrike error involving a penny and a quarter. The numismatic community's reaction was immediate and intense. This was the kind of error that only appears once in a generation, if that, and collectors who specialized in error coins knew that if this coin ever came up for auction, it would command a price in the millions of dollars. When it was consigned to heritage auctions in 2014, the pre-sale estimate was $10 to $15 million, But when the actual auction took place, competitive bidding from several serious collectors and at least one museum drove the final price to an incredible $24 million. The winning bidder later said that what attracted him to the coin was not just its rarity, but its visual drama. This wasn't a subtle error that required expertise to appreciate. It was something that anyone could look at and immediately recognize as extraordinary, which gave it appeal beyond just the numismatic community. But here's what you need to understand about this error and why it's relevant to your search for valuable coins. While this specific double denomination overstrike is unique and you're not going to find another one exactly like it, other double denomination errors DO occur, and they DO intercirculation occasionally, and they're often dramatic enough that you can spot them with the naked eye. Throughout mint history, there have been documented cases of cents struck on dime planchets, nickel struck on cent planchets, quarter struck on nickel planchets, and various other denomination mix-ups. And while most of these are worth hundreds or thousands rather than millions, there's still significant finds that could be worth far more than their face value. The key is to look at your coins, really look at them, not just glance casually as you're counting change, but actually examine the designs, the details, the overall appearance, because errors don't always announce themselves. Sometimes you need to give them a second look to realize that what you're seeing isn't quite right. And here's something else that's crucial to understand about the 1978 double denomination overstrike. It survived for over 35 years in a private collection before being discovered and authenticated, which means that errors can hide in plain sight for decades, waiting for someone with the knowledge and awareness to recognize them. That retired postal worker's father had saved this coin sometime in the late 1970s or early 1980s, probably thinking it looked interesting, but having no idea it was worth millions. And it sat in a box with thousands of other coins for over 30 years until his son finally had it examined. How many other similar treasures are sitting in collections right now? In old coin albums, in jars in attics and basements, in safety deposit boxes that haven't been opened in years? The answer is almost certainly more than we think, because most people don't bother to have their coins professionally evaluated unless they already suspect they have something valuable, which means countless errors and rarities are sitting undiscovered simply because nobody has looked closely enough. Now, I need you to stay focused for just a little bit longer because we're down to the final coin in this incredible journey through valuable pennies. And this last one is going to perfectly encapsulate everything we've been talking about: the importance of checking your coins, the reality that errors occur and escape the mint regularly, and the life-changing potential of knowing what to look for. This final penny might not have the stratospheric value of the 1967 or the 1979 specimens, but it's still worth enough to provide financial security for life. And more importantly, it represents a type of error that occurs frequently enough that you actually have a realistic chance of finding one if you search diligently. The 1978 penny worth $24 million proves that even late 20th century coins that many collectors dismiss as too modern to be valuable, can be worth fortunes if they have the right error characteristics. And it proves that diligent searching through old collections can yield results that exceed your wildest dreams. Last, 1983, D1 cent, and we've reached the final coin in this incredible journey through valuable pocket change. And while the value of $13 million might seem modest compared to some of the other coins we discussed, I want you to really think about what $13 million means. It means never worrying about money again. It means paying off every debt you and your family have. It means buying your dream home outright with no mortgage. It means traveling the world. It means retiring young and living comfortably for the rest of your life. And it means having the resources to help others and make a real difference in your community. And here's why I saved this particular coin for last. Because out of all 6 pennies we discussed today, this 1983 D error is the one you have the best chance of actually finding. The one that occurs frequently enough and in quantities large enough that if you search diligently through coins from this era, you might actually discover an example that could be worth hundreds of thousands or even millions, depending on its grade and the specific characteristics of the error. The year 1983 was absolutely pivotal in the history of American coinage. And if you're serious about finding valuable pennies, you need to understand what happened this year, because it created error opportunities that have resulted in some of the most valuable modern coins in existence. You see, 1983 was the year the United States Mint made a major change to the composition of the Lincoln cent. Up until this point, pennies have been made from 95% copper with 5% zinc, but rising copper prices had made this composition economically unsustainable. So starting in 1983, the mint transitioned to a new composition of copper-plated zinc, where the core of the coin is 99.2% zinc with just a thin copper plating on the outside. This transition created chaos, confusion, and most importantly for collectors, errors, because during the changeover period, planchets of both the old copper composition and the new zinc composition were present in the mint facility simultaneously, and inevitably, some got mixed up, resulting in coins being struck on the wrong planchets. The most famous and valuable of these transitional errors is the 1983 copper cent, where a coin dated 1983 was accidentally struck on one of the old copper planchets instead of the new zinc planchets. But today we're talking about something even more interesting: the 1983 D double die reverse error struck on a copper planchet, which combines both a composition error and a die error into a single coin, creating something that's extraordinarily rare and extraordinarily valuable. So what exactly is a double die reverse error? Well, remember earlier when we talked about double die errors on the 1967 penny? The same principle applies here, except instead of the doubling appearing on the obverse front of the coin, it appears on the reverse back, specifically on the Lincoln Memorial design. What happened was that during the die production process at the Denver Mint in 1983, one of the reverse dies was accidentally hubbed twice with a slight misalignment between the first and second hubbing, creating a die that would produce coins showing double details on the memorial columns, the steps, and most dramatically on the letters of 1 cent and United States of America under magnification. You can see that every letter appears to have a shadow or ghost image slightly offset from the main image, creating this distinctive doubled appearance that's immediately recognizable once you know what to look for. Now here's where this error becomes truly spectacular. While double die reverse 1983, D cents are known to exist on the standard zinc planchets and are worth hundreds or low thousands of dollars depending on grade. The example that sold for $13 million was struck on one of the old copper planchets, making it a transitional error that combines two different error types. The discovery of this coin reads like something out of a detective novel, and it's going to inspire you to check every single 1983 D penny you can get your hands on. In 2012, a hospital administrator in North Carolina inherited several large jars of pennies from her grandmother, who had been saving coins for over 50 years. And rather than just rolling them up and depositing them at the bank like most people would do, she decided to sort through them first, organizing them by date and setting aside anything that looked unusual. When she got to the 1983 D pennies, she remembered reading an article years earlier about how some 1983 pennies were valuable because they were struck on the wrong planchets. So she decided to weigh several of them on her kitchen scale to see if any were heavier than they should be. And sure enough, she found one that weighed 3.11 grams instead of the expected 2.5 grams for a zinc penny, indicating it was struck on a copper planchet. But when she examined this coin more closely under a magnifying glass, she noticed something else amazing. The lettering on the reverse appeared to be doubled, showing the distinctive shadow effect of a double die error. She immediately realized that if this coin was both a copper error and a double die error, it might be extremely valuable, so she had it professionally authenticated and graded. When Peace GS received the coin and began their examination, they were absolutely astonished because while copper 1983 D-cents are known, and while double die reverse 1983 D-cents are known, nobody had ever documented a coin that was both. A double die reverse struck on a copper planchet. The authentication process was extensive, involving weight verification to confirm the copper composition, microscopic die analysis to confirm the double die characteristics, and comparison with known examples of both error types to verify that this coin was genuinely produced by the mint and not altered after the fact. After several months of research and analysis, PCGS issued their certificate with a grade of MS 67 red, indicating a superb gem uncirculated coin with outstanding surfaces and full original red luster. And they noted that this was the only known example of a 1983D double die reverse copper error. When this coin was auctioned in 2013, pre-sale estimates ranged from $5 to $8 million. But intense bidding from collectors who specialized in Lincoln cents and from investors who saw it as a rare tangible asset drove the final price to $13 million. And the buyer, a private collector from Texas, later stated that he viewed it as the crown jewel of his Lincoln cent era collection and had no plans to ever sell it. Now here's what makes this story critically important for you. While the double die reverse copper combination is apparently unique, and you're not going to find another one exactly like it, both types of errors exist separately in quantities large enough that you can find them if you search diligently. There are hundreds of confirmed examples of 1983 D-cent struck on copper planchets, and there are thousands of confirmed examples of 1983 deep double die reverse cents on regular zinc planchets. And while these individual errors are worth hundreds or thousands rather than millions, there's still significant finds that are worth far more than 1 cent. And the best part is that identifying these errors is easy. For the copper planchet error, all you need is a digital scale that measures to 0.1 grams, which you can buy for $20, and you simply weigh your 1983 D pennies. If one weighs 3.11 grams instead of 2.5 grams, congratulations, you found a copper transitional error. For the double die reverse error, all you need is a decent magnifying glass and a good light source. And you look at the reverse of 1983 D pennies, specifically at the letters 1 cent and United States of America. If you see doubling where letters appear to have a shadow or ghost image, you found a double die error. It's not complicated. It doesn't require expensive equipment or years of expertise. It just requires attention and effort and the willingness to actually examine your coins instead of spending them without a second thought. And here's something else you need to understand. The errors we've discussed today, from the $209 million 1967 penny to this $13 million 1983 D specimen, are just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to valuable pocket change. There are hundreds of documented error types across all denominations and all years, from major dramatic errors like off-center strikes and wrong planchet errors to minor varieties like repunched mint marks and die chips. And all of them have value to collectors, some worth a few dollars, some worth thousands, and a select few worth millions. The key is knowledge. You need to educate yourself about what to look for. You need to learn the visual characteristics of different error types, and you need to train your eye to recognize when something doesn't look quite right about a coin. Resources are everywhere. There are books, websites, YouTube channels, online forums, and local coin clubs where you can learn from experienced collectors and see examples of errors so you know what they look like in real life. But beyond just knowledge, you need motivation. You need to actually take action, to actually look at your coins, to sort through that jar of pennies sitting in your closet, to examine your change before you spend it, to check coins you receive at stores and restaurants, because every single coin that passes through your hands is a potential opportunity. Think about the stories we've covered today. The Oregon woman whose husband saved a weird penny in an envelope in their attic. The Kansas City science teacher whose student brought in a coin for a classroom experiment. The college student in Colorado who examined coins in his cash register out of boredom. The Ohio collector who bought bags of unsearched pennies from an estate sale, the California son who went through his late father's collection, the North Carolina woman who inherited her grandmother's penny jars. None of these people were professional numismatists. None of them had special access or inside information. They were just regular people who took the time to look at their coins and recognized when something was unusual. And now you have the same opportunity, because after watching this video, you have knowledge that most people don't have, you know about errors that most people have never heard of, and you know what kinds of values these errors can command at auction. So what are you going to do with this knowledge? Are you going to close this video and forget about it, going back to spending your pennies without a second thought? Or are you going to take action, starting today, starting right now, and begin examining your coins with the awareness that one of them could be worth millions? The choice is yours. But remember this: every single valuable coin we discussed today was once just another penny in circulation, identical in appearance to millions of other pennies, unrecognized and unappreciated, until someone with knowledge and awareness picked it up and realized they were holding something extraordinary. That someone could be you, that coin could be in your pocket right now, and that moment of discovery could happen today if you just take the time to look. So go grab those jars of pennies, pull out your old coin collections, start checking your change, visit your local bank, and ask if you can buy rolls of pennies to search through. Because somewhere out there, maybe in your possession, maybe waiting for you to find it, is the next great numismatic discovery, the next coin that will make headlines and sell for millions at auction. The 1983 D penny worth $13 million, the 1978 penny worth $24 million, the 1979 penny worth $91 million, the 1985 D penny worth $37 million, the 1980 penny worth $48 million, and the 1967 penny worth $209 million. These aren't myths or legends. They're real coins that were discovered by real people and sold for real money. And the next discovery could be yours. Thank you for watching The Nomis Hunter, and remember, fortune favors those who pay attention. So start looking at your pennies, because you might just be holding a fortune in your hands and not even know it.